Edge of Chaos, starring Neurotoxin and Joe Ryan. Edge of Chaos is a free-flowing discussion occasionally dealing with mature topics.
Alright, hello, welcome to the Edge of Chaos. I'm Neurotoxin, here alongside Joe Ryan.
Hello.
And folks, this may just be the show that gets us a complaint from our publishers.
Bear in mind, their publisher is a free repository on the internet of everything and anything.
And we're going to try to hit that threshold. We're going to jovially title this show, Let's Not Lose Our Heads. Now,
I hear a bunch of people going, too soon.
Too soon. No, I'll tell you what's too soon. I'll tell you what frustrates and irritates me about this whole ISIS situation, or I guess now they're calling themselves IS.
ISIL, yeah.
No, it's IS now, the Islamic State. They're
changing.
P. Diddy needs to go be a representative or Diddy or whatever he calls himself because they change their names every 30 seconds for attention.
I like Louis Black's name for him, P. Diddy Daddy Pooey Farty Licky or something like that.
That'd be a good name for this for the Islamic State. Now, make no mistake about it, these guys are scum. They're savages. They're psychopathic murderers. Nobody on this show is supporting what they're doing. But the reaction to them here in the United States and in the United Kingdom and the West in general, it just, I don't know whether to laugh or cry. What do you think, Joe?
It isn't good. We'll just go out and throw out the disclaimer right away, the obvious one. No, it's not good. They're cutting journalists' heads off, obviously. Obviously. This is like, I feel like Louis C.K. Of course. That's a horrible tragedy and all that. But if I was to keep that bit going, but maybe... Maybe if you're over in a place with a four-sided civil war in which three of the sides hate our guts, I don't know. It's just...
What was that George Carlin skit here? I don't give.
You don't want your head cut off. Right. Stay the fuck in Oklahoma. Yeah, exactly.
They're not cutting heads. At least not
so far as I know. Yeah. I mean, it's not funny. It isn't funny, but it's. We do need journalists covering it. It's awful what's going on, but like at some point, we've pulled out of this area and it's so out of control that maybe you should just report it from afar. I don't know.
Well, here's the thing. Here's what pisses me off about it, more so than just the reaction to journalists. I don't think it's unreasonable, obviously, to feel compassion, to feel empathy, and to be pissed off at these guys for beheading, innocent people. Here's my concern. ISIS has killed thousands of people. Thousands of people. They're going around slaughtering innocent people for nothing. For people that have done nothing to them.
Children.
No, the children, they don't slaughter the boys. They're marrying grown men to 7-year-old girls. I mean, these guys are just, they're right at the top of my Christmas list. Packing grenades and I mean, these guys, there's nothing you could do to them that would make me feel bad for them. There's no excuse for them. There's no way anyone in their right mind thinks ISIS is a good thing. But they've killed thousands of people. No one in the West seems to give a shit. Nobody cares. Nobody cares. You kind of hear lazy reporting about it in the news.
When they have long names and their skin isn't white, the general population of Americans going, well... Those aren't real people that we care about. Those are just citizens of Iraq. We didn't care about them when we were bombing Baghdad a few years ago.
Right, that would make us look like hypocrites. No, we did it, but now ISIS can't do it to themselves. Right, exactly.
I love how like it does seem like that happens a lot. Not to get off too much of a tangent, where women and children dying. It's kind of like, as George would put it, it's negotiable. It's not always horrible, isn't it? Well, they were being used as human shields anyway. Whatever.
Again, that's a different show. But yes, I hear what you're saying. I mean, the selective coverage and the selective outrage is what pisses me off. But they behead 2 American journalists, and they behead them theatrically. There's even theories going around that they didn't really kill them.
I heard that theory.
At least one of them, the first one,
Foley, they were saying, it wasn't.
They may have killed him, but that video wasn't real of them killing him. And they do it theatrically. They basically give a spiel to the U.S., and now, all of a sudden, everybody shits themselves. Do you not realize that's what ISIS wants?
That's what Osama wanted, by the way, and he got exactly what he wanted.
Yeah, I remember another event.
Gee.
When the jihadis wanted to piss off the United States, and we still don't realize we gave them exactly what they wanted. This is even worse. These guys don't have that capacity.
No.
Okay? But they behead these two journalists, or theatrically behead them, and we're freaking out. Now, why would ISIS want to piss off the U.S.? I can just see some redneck in Oklahoma thinking, they want to piss us off. What are they, stupid? I'm going to go over there with my shotgun. Oh, you're going to get beheaded, first of all. But so they got shotguns too, buddy. But here's the thing.
And more. They have, and by the way, those weapons are stamped property of the United States government. Thank you very much, Barack Obama.
We gave them to the Iraqi army that pissed itself and
then the Syrian rebels that were fighting against Assad. Once again, our shit versus our shit.
Well,
that ends up being
it's the same idea. Just like hanging out in a country like that is a stupid idea, and you run the risk of getting killed. And as an adult, that's a risk you chose to take, and it's not my responsibility.
Right.
It's equally stupid to dump weapons and military supplies in that region. It's
you guys are cool, right? I mean, you're cool. We're cool. You know, you're not gonna start just killing women and children with these weapons, right? You're gonna kill Assad, right? Oh yeah. We hate Assad. We hate him a lot. Sure. Oh, we mean praise be to God for giving us your weapons, it's Mr. American.
Mind-boggling. Yeah. So now, but
we made this monster.
Right,
so.
but we'll get to that. Right now, I'm just talking about the reaction. We'll get to making it. So they do this because if they piss off the United States, and the UK apparently is now a big part of this, and we start bombing them and we start attacking them, what's going to happen in the Middle East, in other Arab countries, other Muslim countries? This monstrosity becomes a martyr that's fighting the evil Western oppressors. Right now, nobody likes them. Somehow, neither the Republicans nor the Democrats, the right nor the left, Fox News, NBC, has gotten that through their heads, that this Islamic State is not popular among Arabs and among Muslims. When you go around beheading children and innocent women and just slaughtering people, and while you're basically emptying out all the treasuries of all the cities you raid and buying yourself Lexuses, that does not tend to endear you to people around you. That it just, for some odd reason, I don't understand why.
Contrary to the Republican belief that everyone over there is some kind of jihadist monster or something, including the women and children. Right. They think that, everyone tolerates it. No. Aren't the governments of Egypt and Lebanon and Jordan, aren't they trying to pull some resources together to go after these assholes?
Well, they're terrified. Okay. Here, let me just put this in perspective. Al Qaeda and the Al Nusra Front, which is the Al Qaeda affiliate in Syria, is a sworn enemy of the Islamic State because, and I quote Al Zawahiri, who's the new head of Al Qaeda after we got Bin Laden, they're too inhumane.
Marinate on that for a moment.
Just think about that for 35 seconds. Al Qaeda thinks these guys are too inhumane. So if Al Qaeda is not popular in the Middle East by any stretch of the imagination. So if you think about that, you're going to sit here and tell me, all the Muslims and all the Arabs are out to get us and they're going to join the Islamic State. That's it. Once you say that, you're disqualified for the discussion. You're an idiot. You don't know what you're talking about.
Can I ask anyone who's listening to this who thinks that the U.S. needs to intervene in a direct fashion, in a way that goes beyond, let's say, rescuing the people at the top of the mountain that we're fleeing? I forget the
Yazidis.
The Yazidis. Correct. Thank you. I couldn't remember the name. Giving them food, getting them out, whatever. I don't often compliment Obama. He's trying to do the bare minimum to protect the people that are in danger on our side. It seems like
no. Please keep finish.
At least outwardly. Yes. That's the line. That's the line that we're fed.
Yeah, and the line that George W. Bush fed us about Iraq was the WMD. This is equally credible, but okay.
Anyone who thinks that we should, let's say you're John McCain. I'm sorry if you are.
Yeah.
Let's
what did I do to you, Joe?
Let's say you think like John McCain. I'm also sorry for you. And you basically think that the solution to any problem in the world, or there's no problem American bombs can't fix. It's one of those products on late night infomercials. Oh, it slices, it dices, it makes ice cubes, it does it all. It fondles your balls while you make spaghetti. It does it all. If you think that that's the cure for every ill in the world, what positive effect do you think that will produce? Do you think that will make our situation in the region better, worse, or the same? And why? Please legitimize and cite historical example, because I can't think of one damn time where we just, those are the bad guys, bomb the shit out of them. We're doing that. Helped fix the situation. And what do we do after that? I mean,
we bomb the guys we put in charge to get rid of those guys. That's what we do next.
A friend and guest on this show before, Brian Custer, a friend of mine, he was saying, who are you declaring war on? It's not a country. It's a group of ragtag idiots. And they're not ragtag. They have money. They've raided all the treasuries.
No. They're ragtag. Have you looked at the pictures of them?
Again, you can't go to war with a diffuse band of terrorists. I mean, we think they're here, we think they're there, but do we really know? No. And how many completely innocent, people-filled buildings are we going to eradicate on the way to killing those guys? And we'll probably end up missing half of them anyway, if we're lucky, if not more. I just, again, this old Cold War mentality, all these gray, white politicians over screaming, Obama needs to do more. Like, what? They don't ever say what that is. And then you flip to Fox News, and you got big, fat, red, sweaty-faced around here. The president is weak. The president is showing weakness in foreign policy. And then what do you want him to do? They never. If you notice, when you watch these guys, they never say that. Because you can't make a declarative statement, then you can be criticized on it. You just basically say that what he's doing, whatever he's doing, is wrong. And just as a quick aside while I finish this up, I think we're to the point where it's just a parody of itself now, this contrarian Obama-ism on the far right, where, not the far right, but the neocon right, where it's to the point where, did you see the press conference that he gave in a tan suit?
Yeah, yes. Oh, good
Lord,
really?
So I noted that, because it was unusual. It's unusual. It's interesting. I was like, he chose a tan suit. That's different.
Okay.
It's different.
I knew
in the back of my head. Now, Joan Rivers, if she was still with us, might have issues with his fashion choice. But in the back of my head, I'm thinking, I wonder which Republican guy is going to criticize him for his suit. Because I knew it would happen. They got him for not wearing a flag lapel once. Remember when he was running? It was Representative Peter King from New York. Never fails.
That guy.
His tan suit shows he's not taking this seriously. Oh my God! If there was a better example of these guys just have no argument and they have no clue what to do. They just want to be angry that Obama's not doing the right thing, even though they don't elucidate us what that is. Anyway, not to get off on too much of a tangent.
Now, really quickly, my advice to Representative King as a social worker is to take his Thorazine seriously. That guy the shit he comes up with. Okay, let me explain. Let me discredit the guy right now. Okay, when WikiLeaks first broke that massive story and they released all that information, Peter King said on air, and I quote, "People will die because allegedly intelligence information." Where, Mr. King? Where? Show me the people that have died. Show me, please, Mr. King. We await for you to call into the show and name one person that you can logically. Yes, please.
Gloat all you want. You were right.
Yes,
show us.
We're going to interview you. You're going to be our next guest. Will be Peter King. This is mind-boggling. But see, exactly as you said, Joe. Anyone that thinks about this shit for 30 seconds starts to realize, okay, yeah, this is a shitty situation. This is a bad situation. This is a complicated situation. This is a problem. This IS, they're a big deal. They're a monster, and they are dangerous. They could potentially be a threat to our security. But these solutions is bomb, security is there. If you think for 30 seconds, you realize, wait, no, that doesn't work.
Bomb
That's
what?
just exactly. Who are you gonna bomb now? To address your point on Obama that he's protecting people, bullshit. I'm sorry.
Nominally,
what that is? No, it's
that's what he says.
It's simpler than that. So of course, one factor in this whole conflict, which involves Iraq, Syria, Assad, all that, is Kurdistan. And the Kurds, of course, are an ethnicity that their land sits in 4 countries: Syria, Turkey, Iran, and Iraq. Well, 2 of those countries are kind of used to be countries, but our government hasn't caught on yet. It hasn't acknowledged that those 2 are not countries anymore, so we're going to pretend those are still countries.
This was by design, by the way, because guess, ladies and gentlemen, where all the oil in the region sits, where they live.
In Kurdistan, yeah, most
you couldn't just give that whole area to one people.
Well, there's more to it.
You have to have them compete. Free enterprise, right?
The Kurds, right? The Kurds were highly... Oh, yeah, it's free enterprise when it's the Iraqi and Syrian government. Yeah, that's free enterprise. Sign me up for communism. In any case, yeah, I really don't get when people talk about oil as free enterprise, seeing this is about the only country that has private oil producers in the world. Everywhere else it's government-run, and that's somehow free enterprise. No, free enterprise... by definition means not government.
That includes us, by the way. Anyone who doesn't think that, look at how much the oil subsidies are given out every year.
Okay,
anyway,
that's at least corporatism, not just flat-out government run. But in any case, going back to our point about Kurdistan, the Kurds obviously were they were part of the Ottoman Empire, and there's a lot of kind of historic tensions between the Kurds and the local Arabs. Some Kurds are actually Sunni Muslims. Some of them are Kurdish Christians. Some of them are various types of older, very Orthodox, they're called Mizanite Christians, which actually predates Orthodox Christianity. And some of them are Muslims. But they've always kind of been at odds ethnically, religiously, with some of the other ethnic and religious groups in the area. So for those reasons, yes, for the real economic reasons that Joe mentioned, and also for those reasons, Kurdistan was cut up into these 4 parts. And the entire time, 70 years now about since the area was broken up when the British mandate left, there's been I would say a majority of Kurds that has wanted Kurdistan to be its own separate country. And they're united in all of these countries. They're all for the same thing because it's actually relatively easy for them to be united. These countries are very diverse, and this is a group that's very homogenous. Some of them are Muslim, some of them are Christian, but they really more identify by their ethnicity than they do by their religion. So the Kurds have always kind of wanted that, and it's caused at various times, these various governments like Iran, Iraq, Syria, to play the Kurds against the government they were trying to fight. So, for example, when Iran was going head-to-head against Iraq, they were being super nice to the Kurds on their territory because they're hoping to turn the Kurds in Iraq against Saddam Hussein. And then 10 years later, when Saddam technically won that conflict, he started gassing the Kurds. That wasn't a coincidence. This is, so they've kind of always been on the receiving end of the stick because they don't really have their own country and they're kind of in between this whole conflict. So ever since everything went to shit, and it started in Iraq, because the central government in Iraq has been very weak for some time, long before IS was what it is today, Kurdistan kind of declared itself its own country. They call it the regional government of Kurdistan, and it's the one that sits in what used to be Iraq, but really, for all intents and purposes, it's its own country. They tell Baghdad to go fuck themselves. They don't listen to them. I don't know if they pay, I don't know what the tax situation is. The borders are closed. Iraqi citizens need a passport to travel there. I mean, for all intents and purposes.
Don't they have their own money even?
Oh, yes. Yeah. I don't know about money. I don't know how the whole money situation, but it's a country. They have their own military. They don't call them that. They're called the Peshmerga. They're more like a militia, but it's, for all intents and purposes, it's a country.
And then they did the same thing in Syria when the Bashar al-Assad thing started up, the civil war.
Syria went to shit, so they kind of...
The minute the local authorities were broken, they put up checkpoints and said, guess what? We got the same thing here.
Kurdistan, right. So now, this force, again, as Joe said, this is where all the oil is. So while we're okay with IS running around beheading random brown people regardless of what religious sect they belong to, and of course this is relatively easy to do in Syria and Iraq as the former Ottoman Empire, everyone's very segregated by religion. So all these little sects is going to be a little town of 100,000 people and everyone's the same religion. That's how things work over there. So ISIS comes across this town, they decide they don't want to tolerate this religion, it's just, bam, Holocaust. And that's what happened to the Yazidis. They ran toward Kurdistan because they weren't stupid. That's why there's a reason they ran in that direction. Because right there you have a city, I forget the name of this city, it's a Kurdish city. And Obama keeps talking about how we need our presence there, he calls it Iraq, but it's Kurdistan, to protect U.S. workers and diplomats. Why the fuck do we have so many U.S. people in some little Kurdish city you've never heard of? Could it be that maybe because it's one of the biggest oil-producing cities in the world?
Gee.
Exxon's there, British Petroleum, Cameron's going ape shit over bombing these guys. And gee, I wonder if that could... Yeah, I mean, where was your concern with Aleppo?
Yeah,
Where was your concern? Where was all this when they were just slaughtering people that have no oil? So the reason we've been bombing IS and basically using them chasing these guys, not only to bomb them, but to arm openly, we're not even trying to hide this anymore, arm and fund and supply the Kurds to fight against them, is because that's where all the oil is. We cannot let them overrun a place that has that much oil production. One, it's our corporate interests. Two, if we give them oil, they may actually become a thriving country. I'm not sure because they're idiots. They don't know how to do anything but kill, but it's a distinct possibility. So I'm not even passing judgment on that action. All I'm saying is that's the motive. There's no human rights concern whatsoever. There's zero, and anyone that pretends that's the case, they're either stupid or they're lying.
I mean, there were humanitarian food drops for the Yazidis, but other than that, I can't think of anything.
Again, you need humanitarian food drops because if they're dead, then you have no excuse to bomb the guys coming after them, and you have to openly admit we're just protecting our oil. I mean, I don't doubt that some people are driven by humanitarian motives, but it's amazing to me how humanitarian motives are always combined with economic ones.
They got strings attached.
It's amazing.
Wouldn't you have Obama just going something like, well, our fighters in the Middle East are there to protect the Kurds and to assist in their defense of their home, and we will support. It's who he talks.
Yeah, well, it's the teleprompter.
I don't know if that's even worse than the Bush. Yeah, we're going to go over, we're going to smash terrorists, we're going to bomb them, and we're in America, and we smash terrorists, and that's what we do.
Bush was...
Miss me yet?
Bush was stupid, but he was genuinely stupid.
Just because you have a piece of paper on the wall with the university's name on it does not mean that you cannot also be an idiot. This is possible. I say 3 words to buttress my point. Dr. Ben Carson. Enough said.
No, when I encounter a teenager that talks about wanting to go to an Ivy League school, I tell them, George W. Bush graduated from Yale.
Yeah.
It's like, there you go. There goes your credibility, Yale. Going back to our discussion of the region at hand, let's talk for a moment more about the Kurds and why arming and funding the Kurds does not become a good idea simply because they're not Muslim. It's becoming the new communism. Islam, Muslims, Islam, radical Islam, Muslim.
Or as Kennedy always says it, radical Islamic jihadists.
At least he's separating out the radicals.
Yeah.
At least, you have to give him credit, as much as it pains me.
Or as Ralphie May puts it, the Muslim is gonna get you, the Muslim is gonna get you, the Muslim is gonna get you tonight. Allah, Allah.
Pretty much. So, Kurds, even though a majority of them are Christian, have this little organization that's been active in Turkey, in the Kurdish part of Turkey, because we talked about how there's a Kurdistan.
A lot of the Kurd resistance fighters in Syria have been safe housing in Turkey.
True.
Things get too hot.
So this organization is called the DPRK, or is it the DPRK? I don't.
DPRK is Democratic People's Republic of Korea.
Well, here's the thing. I may be butchering that acronym, but basically that's what they are. They're the Kurdish Communist Party. And that, even though it's a party, they're a banned political party, and they're basically a guerrilla militia that's been fighting on behalf of the Kurds since before Islamism was cool. Since when communism was what the guerrillas used to call themselves, like, Che Guevara and the Contras in Nicaragua and all that. This was, well, not the Contras, but the Nicaraguan uprising and all that. So these guys come from that era. Now, what country are they in? Turkey. Turkey is a member of NATO.
Yes,
now, do you really think that
yes.
This regional Kurdish government that we're giving money and weapons to, that somehow magically those weapons are not going to flow down to a communist guerrilla organization seeking to attack and basically a terrorist insurgency against a fellow NATO member? I think of all the fucked up things we've done with our foreign policy, I don't think we've ever armed a guerrilla organization on the soil of a fellow NATO member. I'm pretty sure that is a first. Not to mention, these guys are self-proclaimed communists. Remember when communism was the enemy? And giving like, we used to arm the jihadis to fight against the communists, like in Afghanistan, and now we're arming the communists to fight against the jihadis.
Here's the problem that I have, to get on a theoretical reaction to some of the things you brought up. I am tired. I think when you hear a comedian, Bill Hicks has done it, George Carlin has done it, decry fervent nationalism. A lot of they call themselves patriotic Americans. They get upset because they're like, well, how dare you say that I love America and I'm not ashamed to love America and I'm American, I love America. Okay, here's the problem.
I'm ashamed that you're an American, the idiot that's saying that, just so we're on the same page.
you can, they always couch it in like this false pride thing. It's like it's accident of birth. It's kind of like how if George would say someone's happy to be Irish, it's like, well, how can you be happy with something you had no control over?
Thank you.
It's accident of birth that you're Irish. I'm okay with being Irish is a better surety, but I would say, but it's funny how if you're on this nationalist train, you have no real secure morals. It seems like they're not founded on bedrock. It shifts with the coming of the tides. It seems like, oh well, today we shake up the little enemy mixer today, and today it's this side against that side, and this time we're arming these guys against those guys, even though we used to back those guys against these other guys. It just gets really crazy, and for someone like me who doesn't always ride this crazy train, it can get a little confusing, and I pay attention to it more than I feel the average person does. And it's insane, and I think the times where I agree with people like Ron and Rand Paul, who are nut bars in my opinion in other ways, the one thing they say is, just stop this. Stop it. Stop. Just stop. Just
shut up.
This whole
Put
circus.
A cork in it, yeah.
Shut it down, because all it does is piss new and different people off and enrich a bunch of rich defense contractors that don't give a shit who they're selling the arms to, as long as they're being made and they're being bought. That's it. That's the only two criteria. Are we making them? Yes. Are we making obscene profits selling them off to someone? Yes. Okay, good. We're good. I think anyone who claims that they're for these things and wants us to get involved in all these skirmishes, they need to acknowledge the fact that they're also a shareholder in these companies, because I can't think of any other self-interested way, unless you're just being delusional and ignorant.
Stupid, yeah.
To want to do this. It has no positive benefit at all.
Okay,
politically, so you can, anything.
Yeah, it reminds me of a meme that a fan of ours posted on Facebook the other day, where it's just some guy in basically a clown suit with American colors, and he's waving a flag, and he's got all his his American flag hat and all that. And the caption on the meme reads, "I'm free market. I'm against big government. And if you talk bad things about my government, you need to leave. I'm so confused." But it's true. It's like these guys are conservative and supposedly anti-big government and anti-establishment and anti-police state until the minute they need to talk about investing money in defense and more weapons and more powers for the police. It's like, figure it out. Pick a side.
Or when there's one brown person holding one gun somewhere in the world, oh, then we need the biggest military on earth to deal with it.
Okay. So let's try to be a little more serious for a minute here. We were having trouble doing that today, but that's fine. We don't have to always
sarcasm
be serious.
is our milieu, though.
It is. So let's talk a little bit about where IS came from. And I know I'm going to get hate mail for saying this, and I love it. Bring it on. I will crush you. Because just the fact that you're offended doesn't make me wrong. That's kind of my milieu. So this Islamic State, as they call themselves now, is the first truly independent Arab state. Probably in about, give or take, 1,000 years. But it's definitely, because, the Ottoman Empire wasn't really an Arab state. It was run out of Turkey, and those aren't Arabs. The history gets fuzzy.
The Ottoman Empire is a remnant of the Roman Empire, if anything.
Not really. Mongols.
Oh, sorry.
Mongols took over the Umayyad, or the Abbasid Empire. That was an Islamic empire. That was more the Arabs. So that was...
I missed a few empires in between.
Yeah, but that was about 1,000 years ago, give or take. So, but... More importantly, talking about limiting ourselves to recent history, since the withdrawal of the British Mandate, what independent Arab states have there been? I'm going to read off this list right now. You ready? Yeah.
Do you hear the crickets chirping? I thought I did. There
yeah, exactly. There's nothing, and that even includes. You can even say, you can go further. You can say it's states in that part of the world, in that region. They don't have to be Arab states. Israel, for example, that's not an independent state. And I'm pretty pro-Israel, but we have to acknowledge that's a satellite state of the United States. That's where they get their money. That's where they get their weapons. And that tends to influence your policy just a little bit.
Ask yourself what would happen if we just decided next week not to sell or give them anything.
Well, we need them too. But yeah, you do get... You're absolutely right, Joe. So if you think about, starting with the western tip of North Africa, so you got states like Algeria, Libya,
which is
Tunisia.
going to hell right now.
Oh, yeah. Of course, now it's all going to shit. Egypt, and then the entire peninsula, Jordan, Saudi Arabia, Kuwait, those countries, Iraq, Syria, Lebanon. None of these countries have ever really been independent. They've been ruled by totalitarian dictatorships, well, a couple of maybe semi-exceptions, that have answered either to the United States or to the USSR. It's like it's almost like democracy in the United States. You get to choose which asshole you dislike less today.
Yeah, basically.
That's kind of how it was only on massive steroids and growth hormone for them. And, again, I know I'm going to catch flack. I mean, I love it when you have American... I'm not going to call them conservatives. I'm going to call them interventionists, whether it's John McCain or Hillary Clinton. Like, Mubarak is the president of Egypt, and he's the leader. It's like, bullshit. It's a military dictator that the CIA backed, put in place, and then supported to his last day in office while 5 million of his own people are outside his palace. Get the fuck out. And then we're surprised they throw eggs at Hillary Clinton when she goes. I wonder.
What disrespect.
Yeah, disrespect.
Okay, I'm sorry. You bring her to our city, I'll throw eggs at her.
Yeah, I'm with you there. But anyway, she's not exactly... she should, I'm sorry, Egypt. I apologize we tried to pawn her off on you. We just needed a break from her for a while.
Yeah.
So, that being said, okay... But then you get leftists and apologists for socialism and apologists for the USSR. And God, there's getting to be a lot of those. We've forgotten what the USSR was now. There's people now actually trying to revisit the USSR saying, oh, well, Saddam Hussein in his original iteration and Bashar Assad, they were Arab nationalists. And they were socialists and they were trying to raise Arab nationalism and fight Western. It's bullshit. These were satellite states of the USSR and they were worse than the United States satellite states, because in the U.S., at least here, politicians have some accountability. Brezhnev's idea of accountability was a gun to your head. So don't
you account for this bullet in this gun. You account for that.
Yes, exactly. So there has not been an independent Arab state, and that did not change with the fall of the USSR. All these states really that are going to shit, like really going to shit now, they're all former Soviet satellites. Because they have no patron saint. Russia is not cutting, and some of them are still kind of with Russia, Syria, Libya, but it can't support them.
Right.
That's why they're going to shit. And every time we get involved, and it's not just Iraq. We've been in Somalia. We've been in Egypt, Yemen. It's not just bombing people. It's giving them money and
we have a
weapons.
base in Yemen.
Saudi Arabia.
Saudi Arabia.
Every time we get involved, you can even go, these are not really Arab countries. You can go to like Afghanistan and Pakistan. How much have we invested in the conflicts there? Every time we get involved, what we're doing is we're taking a local conflict, the existing conflict, and we co-opt one side to kick the ass of the other because that one side agrees to do business with us, sell us oil, whatever it is we need from that country. That's basically what we do. And then we're surprised that the minute we leave... people that want that government out.
Let's just go back to elementary school and make this easier. If you're a little wimp kid and you got some big kid wanting to kick your ass, what do? You start giving your lunch money to some other big kid to be your bodyguard, and who kicks that kid's ass? But what happens if that kid moves away? You got no one to pay to protect you anymore. Guess what?
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
It's called blowback.
Every single time we do this. And that, by the way, again, I'm going to break a few neocon hearts, that absolutely includes Al-Qaeda. We created that monster to fight the USSR in Afghanistan. It wasn't called Al-Qaeda back then. No. It's called the Mujahideen, but guess who was the
You may remember a former CIA trainee by the name of, I don't know, what was it? Osama bin Laden? Something like that?
Yeah, some guy like that. I don't remember who he was. He died, I heard, but yeah. But you see my point. Even Al-Qaeda, they got out of control. We lost control of them, but they were still our brainchild. They were not formed in opposition to the United States. So this monstrosity, this cancer on the face of the earth,
as Obama put it.
That is what it is, though. You can't get around the judgments of it. It's the only thing extreme enough not to be co-opted. Look at LCC. Look at the new president, quote unquote, of Egypt, guy who just mowed down 5,000 protests.
You mean the head general of the military?
Right. The latest military coup. We tried to kind of disown him for a few months, and then there was the whole Hamas-Israel battle. All of a sudden, nope, LCC, you're cool. Yeah,
now they're the only ones standing between peace and not peace.
5,000 of your own people. Yeah, you've been on penalty for 6 months without. You've been on timeout. It's okay now.
Neither Gaza nor Israel will talk to John Kerry anymore. So now we sort of hired LCC as our part-time diplomat in the region.
Don't diss John Kerry. He brings consensus everywhere. Everyone agrees they're going to go tell him to go fuck himself.
We're resolved. We hate that guy. Fuck that guy.
Out of here. Okay, he's gone. Now we can start killing each other. Yeah. Okay. Now. So but there is no way any Western power is going to co-opt IS. It's just not happening. These guys are too insane. Even
They're
if
so
they
nuts.
want
We're going to join. Weren't we going to help Assad to crush them in Syria?
Actually, Iran, our sworn enemy. The guys
the
who
big
burn
devil.
our flags.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. Now all of a sudden we're friends because these guys are just.
That should put it in perspective.
Right. But my point is, Iran, the Ayatollahs, we put them in power too. They switched allegiances and they became a patron saint of the USSR, but they started as one of ours. They are not remotely as crazy as
I thought
ISIS.
we put in the Shah.
That too. And then, there's varying theories. The Shah was going to he was dying, for one, and his regime was going to collapse. And there was a very strong communist movement that was very pro-USSR that was getting ready to stage a coup. And then there was these crazy Islamist guys on the far right. And magically, they somehow got all these weapons.
I think I remember hearing that, and then they turned on us.
Right. They did turn on us. I'm not saying they stayed with us for very long, but at that time, if you think about it, again, it's this.
They just wanted our help anyway.
Right, but it's around the same time that we created Al Qaeda with the Mujahideen in Afghanistan. Back then, we thought it would be cool to create all these Islamist fucks to fight the communists. How's that working out for you? But anyway, still, I really have to hammer home this point. In the Middle East, in that region, because the Western interests with the oil are so intense there, the only thing that's going to not be co-opted by the West, and when I say West, I mean Russia also, anything that's European, any superpower, is going to have to be this extreme. And if you talk to people from those countries, whether or not they're Muslims, there's a lot of non-Muslims there, whether they're Shia or Sunni, whether they're extreme or relatively moderate, whether they're Arabs, Kurds, whatever else, the one thing they all have in common is they want self-determination. For some reason, after 70 years of being the place that gets stained by the urine in the global pissing match, they want a government that represents them and not somebody else. In fact, if you think about some of the ideologies, they failed, but were the case. So Saddam originally, Assad, Nasser, the PLO with Arafat. These guys were Arab nationalists. I wonder why they chose that as an ideology. Could it be that maybe they're trying to unite the people there against the people not? They're just a thought. Okay?
Maybe.
And then you have the Ayatollahs and Al-Qaeda and then the 70s, the 80s, and they're Islamists. Because most of the people living there are Muslims, and most of the people oppressing them are not. I wonder if maybe they thought of that would be a good way to unite people there against people not there. They've been trying, and again, I'm not apologizing for IS, but the people there, the average person that's not looking to kill anybody, that's not looking for war, looking for violence, they're looking for self-determination. This is what they've been wanting since 1946. And the only thing that could possibly deliver this is something this extreme. And I don't even care about the Islamism. That's just a tag. It's their behavior I have a problem with. It's their violence, their savagery, and their incompetence. Well, we're surprised that something like this finally came into being? Really, people?
Really shouldn't be.
Right. We've only been co-opting everything that tries to do it more peacefully, and that's relative. When you're thinking about Saddam Hussein and Al-Qaeda and the Ayatollahs as peacefully, that's really saying a lot. So
compared to ISIS, they are. Yeah.
So now, let's think about
this. ISIL. I'm sorry.
If it's actually IS now, the Islamic State, that's what they call themselves now. If we bomb out IS, and we could bomb them out 2 days, there's no IS. These guys,
which is why McCain. They know we can, so they want to.
These guys are a joke militarily. They can't even take on the Kurds. They can't even take on what's left of the Iraqi government, the Syrian government. They don't stand a snowball's chance in hell. But if we do that, what do you think is going to happen? Because we've already demonstrated again in our behavior with trying to all of a sudden hold Iran's balls and all of a sudden play ball with the Kurds and arm them. We've already shown that whoever we use to crush them, whoever we align with, we're going to co-opt for our interests. Well, guess what? That desire for self-determination isn't going to go away.
Yeah.
So if you crush ISIS or IS, the next thing is going to be even worse. Whatever takes their place as the face of regional self-determination is going to be even more dangerous and even more brutal. It's like if you had a cancerous growth on your face, you can cut off the part that you can see, but it's going to grow back. It's going to be bigger, and it's going to be uglier. And absolutely the stupidest suggestion I heard, actually this was someone on our own Facebook page. You're welcome to go back and read it. I'm not going to name any names.
I read this
But
thread.
this guy, I just couldn't believe it. Going off, well, we just need to occupy the entire Arab world. This guy failed math in 5th grade.
Yeah.
Do you know how many people are
Oh my God! This guy apparently has been asleep for the last 12 years.
Yeah, that didn't work for two
We couldn't occupy
countries.
Iraq without massive
And
casualties
Iraq
on our
is
side.
developed.
And not
It's
massive
actually
historically,
pretty
but-
developed, relatively speaking. There's a lot of educated people. We actually had a lot of people in Iraq that
Forget how much
remembered.
it took a surge in 2007 to stop the up. We were still fighting city to city
Yes,
in that.
and-
4 years after we invaded.
And if you look at surveys done and polls, Iraq is one of the least militant Islamist and one of the most pro-U.S. countries in the Middle East. Think about that for a second. How happy they were to have us there. They were the pro-U.S. guys. Places like Egypt, Saudi Arabia, they might not be so happy to have us occupy them as Iraq was. And Iraq wasn't exactly thrilled. This is just plain stupid. It really goes back to our discussion of Ferguson a couple weeks ago. It's the same principle. When you use force and you just use everything looks like a nail because all you've got is a hammer, more people join whoever you're attacking because you're pissing them off. This is why they call it collateral damage. It's not a human rights concern. It's simple security strategy. And we've already demonstrated in Iraq and Afghanistan that we can't even control them at the levels that they're at. And like I said, most people there, contrary to what Bill O'Reilly will want you to think, are not militant extremists. Maybe in places like Mauritania, but definitely not in the Middle East. So what is this suggestion? Oh, let's bomb them out. Okay. And then
I've heard that suggestion
what?
a long time before,
And
yeah.
then what? What is our long-term strategy? Because it's been bomb now and think later for the last 70 years, and the Islamic State is the product of that policy.
We bombed it in the early 90s. We bombed it in the early 2000s, if using Iraq as an example.
We bombed it.
We were bombing
in the 80s. I mean, it's just bomb,
We
bomb,
obviously
bomb, 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 bomb.
Did bombing in Vietnam help us one iota? No, it did not.
Okay, but you know what? We left Southeast Asia.
Yes, we did.
And now, to quote Ron Paul, people go on vacation in Vietnam.
It's okay to go to Vietnam.
Go on tours in Cambodia and in Laos. All those countries were communist countries.
Former killing fields, yeah.
And
all
they've
that.
actually, with the exception of Vietnam, all of those countries have lynched their communist leaders. Why? Because they didn't like them. Their only endearing grace was that they were against the oppressive West. So as soon as they didn't have it, they're like, we were still killing you. Exactly. And that, folks, is what will happen to ISIS if we let them try governing for about 6 months. Have you seen these guys?
I think that whole beheading for crossing the street against a light policy that they're going to have in their city laws, that might offend a few people when it's someone's kid. Well, you just crossed against the signal. You know what happens now. Get out the saw.
Yeah, that doesn't.
That may
tend
not
to
quite,
endear people to you.
It's not a recipe for long-term cooperation with the people.
Yeah, there's also this thing called economics. So when we talk about how every state in the Middle East has been a satellite state of a superpower, with the exception of the ones that have oil, which IS does not, that is essentially how they fund themselves. Because a lot of these guys are extremely incompetent, especially in the Arab Peninsula. These kings, now they're on their second, third generation from who we put. Think about it. This is why, inherited monarchies don't work. because you're not really competent, you're not really educated, you're not elected, you're just some guy that
turned it
happened to
into
be
a ceremonial thing like in the UK.
Well, that's ceremonial. We're talking about them actually being heads of state. So the reason these monarchies without natural resources and without competence have been able to stay in power a lot of times is because they have foreign money. They have foreign aid. So one disadvantage for IS of not having that, and they really don't have natural resources or the means to use them, is they're going to go broke. And they're already wasting everything that they've co-opted, everything that they've expropriated, buying themselves Lexuses.
Did they really need spinners on the Lexuses?
Well, they watched all those Dr. Dre videos, and that's cool. You gotta love how they're trying to act like they're anti-American, and yet they're Lexus is a Japanese thing, but like spinners are not. I'm sorry, nobody has spinners in Japan. Nobody. I've been to Japan. No, that's crap.
They don't even have me here anymore, so now we know where they went.
Right, exactly. So, it's just like us pushing our weapons off on them. Now we're pushing our spinners off on them too. It's pathetic. Like, you guys are not cool. Get over it. So that, between their, like I said, what you said, the brutality, the incompetence, and the fact they have no resources, they're not going to last very long unless we keep aggravating them.
And I want to talk about one more thing that I keep hearing on the Hannity type shows. Oh, and I love how they make these. You gotta tip your hat to the elaborate insanity on display in these shows. That you start with a core of Obama hatred. You throw a layer of jingoism over top of it, then nationalism over top of that, and then corporatism over top of that, and then you get, oh my God, the borders are porous because of Obama, and now Yemenis and ISIS fighters and Syrians are going to come across the border, and they have bubonic plague grenades because there was a guy in Tunisia who got caught with a laptop that had all these plans. Okay, all right.
Where do you even start?
All right. The minute you say a phrase like bubonic plague grenades.
Wait, is this for real? I thought you were joking.
This happened on the radio show on Hannity. I'm not making this up.
I thought you
bubonic
were
plague
joking.
grenades. You lost me, okay? You're now Alex Jones level nuts, and I'm no longer listening to you. Now, this, and I don't even know, I didn't even take the chance to Google this because it's so insane it does not merit any kind of research. But
no, it does not.
I'm telling you, if you want to research this part, go for it. I'm sure there's enough recordings of Hannity online somewhere. It was sometime in this last week, I want to say it was like Wednesday, maybe Thursday, where he was talking about this guy who got captured in Tunisia. He was talking about two things. Some guy who got captured in Tunisia, who's apparently ISIS sympathetic, and had this laptop full of these insane ramblings. It's like if he had got caught with the, some kind of John Clancy book about a coup against America.
Yes.
That's going to happen tomorrow. It's that level of insane. Where, okay, some guys' insane rantings are now de facto not only plans, but imminent ones. Shouldn't
they at least be Ebola grenades? I mean, isn't he kind of in the
He's not even newsly enough. Yeah, right. I know. And one of his things in the laptop was bubonic plague bombs and plague grenades. Oh, and this, throw bombs into theaters and markets to up your blah, blah, blah. What the fucking... Yeah. Okay, all right. So, leaving that aside, I mean, I love how they just tie it all up. So not only
it's Obama's fault, right? This guy's Obama's fault.
You start with that core, yeah. So not only are Central American kids coming across with lice, fleas, scabies, plague, hepatitis,
bubonic plague grenades, apparently.
Whatever. They're also amongst those kids. There's other kids that are ISIS kids wearing bubonic plague grenades that are. I just don't.
Wow.
You have to. The fact that they have to turn it. It is something that it's not only parallel reality, it's something it's not even anywhere approaching the reality anymore. You're now in a nut house, in a rubber room, inside the mind of an insane person when you're listening to this crap. And if you're thinking this is actually going to happen, you need to have your mind checked out, please. Well, you're going to snap any minute.
Here's the thing. Okay, you want to draw parallels. I'll draw you a parallel for that, okay? When you're doing that, the level of insanity that you're at is essentially ISIS level of insanity. think about what's supposedly driving these guys, right? Is
yeah.
the Islamism and the 72 virgins and the we have to kill everyone if they don't convert and we're going to marry
die. That's what Hannity keeps saying. That's what they do. It's convert or die. They want a caliphate.
That's what Hannity's doing.
I know. That's the irony. They have no irony. Those guys have no irony.
You don't understand the difference between you and them, but they're having to behead people to get them to listen. Your dumbass has fans.
And the other one was these missing airliners from Libya. Did you hear about this?
Oh, good God, yes.
I mean, it's insanity crap. It's stuff that you have to look for on those like right-wing nut bar websites.
I guess I saw this actually on Russian language media, and again, this is so now we're comparing you to.
So now we're really reliable sources. We're in really reliable terrain here, folks.
Yeah. So there was this whole thing where supposedly. Oh yeah, no, that's the most reliable.
By the way, did you hear on the Russian media that Putin is one of the greatest world leaders ever in history?
Of course,
not just in Russia, but any country ever.
Okay, so apparently there was some sort of this thing about the airliners. That's where it came from, Libya. Apparently, there's a video of one guy claiming to be IS and claiming to be able to fly one of these planes
once again, the important key word here is claiming.
Let me tell you something.
Claiming.
If I magically wake up tomorrow and there's an F-16 in my backyard, just sitting there ready to go, fueled up, that does not mean I'm going to be able to fly over to your house and bomb you. Just, there's a certain training and certain, skills that go into that. So
even there's a post-it note that says throttle, and there's other one that says
does
wings
work.
and flaps.
You're going to die. Yeah. The only threat you are is to yourself and whoever's head you fall on top.
You'd end up trying to fly it. You'd click some button and blow up Poway with your missile.
Right.
I mean,
right. So yeah, kind of like the Beavis and Butthead where they get the drone control. Right. It would be a little bit like that, only scarier. So this guy is allegedly sitting in a stolen, I'm not sure what kind of plane, but I guess they got a couple. He's claiming they have a couple of warplanes, and he's threatening to liberate Chechnya, which of course is a Muslim minority place in Russia that's kind of been restive for a few decades, and they're fellow Muslims, we're going to go liberate. And of course this is a desperate propaganda plot that, look, ISIS is scary, so you must support Putin.
But they are really throwing everything up against the wall to see if it sticks,
right?
Because the Chechens have been known as being very brutal.
Okay. First of all, this is a little disconnect. This is just a slight disconnect that we have in this. There's a big flaw in this argument. See, the Chechens are Shia. And IS has been known to slaughter anyone who's Shia on sight.
Well, let's not get bogged down in details.
You at least get the option to convert. Or if you're Yazidi or whatever.
But if you're Shia scum,
they're of the bad blood or whatever they call them.
They would say, yes.
So they're going to liberate Chechnya. They're going to liberate the mountains, apparently, because they're going to slaughter everyone there the moment they get there. That's how are you going to get there? I mean, you still have to get through 2 borders or 3 borders before you're even in Russia. And even assuming somehow magically you learn to fly this plane, now, there's these things called surface-to-air missiles.
Yes.
And they will shoot you down. You're not going to take over a country with one plane. That hasn't worked for anyone very well. So this it's mind-boggling. And it's another way we have keeping our heads. This is what we mean. This is ridiculous. And speaking of hysteria, another person who I want to politely recommend to keep his head is UK Prime Minister David Cameron.
He's not known as being the sharpest knife in the drawer. I don't know if you read about the phone hacking scandal.
No,
He didn't handle that very well. Finding out that your government is routinely basically letting people be spied on, and yeah, it's complicated. But
so his response to this Islamic State threat, which of course they've beheaded Americans, not Britons, has been the reason level response that goes something like this.
Well, they're threatening the next guy they're going to cut his head off is British, supposedly.
Oh. So?
Yeah, I know.
I mean, yeah, okay, that sucks. I'm sorry for that guy and his family, but
sucks
that
for
does
him,
not warrant that response.
Not the entire country of the UK. Yeah,
right. And what it is, basically, what he's been suggesting, they've elevated their threat level. Who was the comedian that was talking about threat levels?
Ron White.
Yeah, Ron White, right?
When it's done in green, you don't even need sunscreen. Just walk out naked.
Yeah.
You can't even burn my cock.
essentially. So they've raised it to like the second highest level, and he's proposing like snap legislation. This is scary. That if you're suspected of being an Islamic State sympathizer, then at the border, when you're exiting the UK, not entering it, they can take away your passport and detain you until you check out that you're not an Islamic State sympathizer. By the way, what are some objective criteria for determining who's an Islamic State sympathizer? If your skin is brown, and apparently someone affiliated with that agency doesn't like you, those are the two kind of criteria.
Who can argue with bulletproof criteria like that?
Yeah, we've already seen.
Don't
what
you
the
want
DHS,
a safe UK?
Right. I mean, okay. So these strategies, these tactics, as we've witnessed in Ferguson, by the way, as we've noticed with the NSA scandal, as we're seeing with our borders, they do not keep anyone safe. And me disagreeing with you is not me saying as the Islamic State is not a problem. It's me saying you're an idiot. You're not solving this problem. You're trying to use this crisis as a desperate last-ditch effort to save the military-industrial complex and the police state because no one's buying it. Literally, the only thing that I'm happy about is this is not catching on. In fact, his MPs from the Conservative Party are now defecting to UKIP, the United Kingdom Independence Party.
Oh, it's not good.
Which is, of course, independence being from the European Union.
And not to mention, not to get you deep into UK politics, they're doing this shit at a time where Scotland is about to vote on whether or not they're going to stay in the UK or not. Do you think now's the time to start telling Scottish citizens, yeah, here we want those passports right here. Come on, give them.
Yeah, please, sure. Here, take them all, David. Here, take them all. No, they'll just throw them all at you because they're no longer United Kingdom citizens, right?
Fuck them. We'll burn them right in front of you. How about that, asshole?
Okay,
yeah, gee.
But
great timing.
Okay, but here is how I flip this toward Americans. See, when the United Kingdom fired the Labour Party, Tony Blair, what was his name, Gordon Brown, all those pro-war assholes that were right along Bush Jr. I mean, that was the number 2 guy. Then they put this ruling coalition in power. One of the main demands was no war. It's kind of flipped in the UK where the Conservatives are firmly anti-war and the Labour is pro-war. But the point is, it's very clear, stay the fuck out of the Middle East. Stop. This is a stupid idea. We cannot be the bitch of the US. We have to stop doing this. It was a good thing. And it seems to me that because, they have a multi-party system and this does help with that. It seems to me that both the MPs and the people that they represent are aware that Cameron is not anti-war enough. He happens to be the leader of this coalition, but of course it's coalition voting, it's parliamentary voting. All it would take is a few more people defecting from his coalition, or say like the Liberal Party saying he's done. The Parliament, they don't have to wait for an election.
It dissolved.
Parliament's dissolved. New coalition. Cameron is no longer the Prime Minister. Simple as that. Seems like the UK is catching on. I mean, there's a Scottish referendum. That's right in it too. Now, let's talk about the United States. Somehow, after 6 years of continuing to bomb people, liberals in this country have not caught on that electing Obama to replace Bush because he's anti-war isn't really working out. I mean, okay, we're not invading whole countries yet. Okay, we haven't done that.
I will say that he has a markedly different approach. I will say that.
I don't know about markedly different. I would say he waffles, for one.
At least for these new issues. Right. I'll even distill it down to that. And new issues that have come up on his watch.
Secondly,
not issues he was handed.
I would say he's doing the same thing, just with a little bit less magnitude. Like now Cameron is almost suggesting Bush Jr. level magnitude or Tony Blair magnitude. Obama is not there. Okay, it's less so, and it's also more under the radar. Shit like NDAA and whatnot isn't remotely as out there as the Patriot Act, but he's still doing it. It's the same policies. They're a little more muted, and because of this, voters are not catching on. Can you imagine if Obama got out there and actually wanted to invade Iraq again? You think any Democrat would still be in his corner? There'll probably be a few, but it'd be a lot fewer. His own party would catch on. Okay, no, this guy is not who he claims to be on foreign policy. But because Obama is just so, I don't know what we'll do. But if you look at his policies, look at what he's doing, not what he's claiming to do, you will see that not a whole lot has changed.
And do you think Hillary, by the way, would do any different? Give me a break. She voted for the war in Iraq, for crying out loud.
It's
anyway,
just,
lest we forget, she's hoping that we all have. That was 10 years ago. Come on, get with the times. I'm not doing. I'm not doing that today. I'm not doing that today.
Tomorrow when I get elected.
You going for war in Iraq right now? I'm not going for war in Iraq right now. She gets in. Okay, we're gonna go to Iraq. And then, exactly.
I am getting with the times. I'm not voting for another Clinton. Now,
yes, or another Bush 90s, for that matter, but that's another show.
That's a different show. So, what I'm trying to say, and now that we're on David Cameron and we're on the EU, I can't leave this show about keeping our heads and media hysteria without touching
pivot
on
to an old friend,
a dear old friend of mine, Vladimir Vladimirovich Putin. Mr. Putin, again, is a social worker, just because, we're country mates, and actually he's from St. Petersburg, the same city I'm from, we go way back. I will offer you a free initial consultation because, Mr. Putin, you've lost it. Okay, seriously, he actually is telling the whole world that 5,000 Russian troops in full gear, standard issue weapons, armored personnel carriers, tanks, rockets, artillery, they're volunteers. That they may be active military, but they're on vacation. Because when I go on vacation, that's
you take your gun and your camouflage,
and I go fight a war in another country. That's my
and you drive there in your APC.
Well, no. But when they've been questioned about that, he said, "Well, there's black markets all over Eastern Europe, and they could have."
So apparently, there's Armaments R Us in Russia, whatever you would call that in Russia. Come to Armaments R Us, where we have all your APC needs: grenades, machine guns, flak jackets, helmets,
That's
tanks.
where the bubonic plague grenades are. That's where they're going to find them. Okay.
We have plague grenades, we have cholera grenades, we have Ebola grenades, we have grenades with any communicable disease you want to wipe out any enemy for low prices.
Landmines, the gift that keeps on giving.
Years and decades later, just ask kids walking around in Africa or the Middle East or anywhere in Europe even.
Right. So I want to know where this place is where I can buy me an armored personnel carrier, because clearly 5,000 drunk guys on the salary of a Russian soldier can afford a couple hundred of them. You and I have Joe. If we go in on one, we're gonna have an Edge of Chaos. The next time Edge of Chaos shows up at a live event, look for the Russian armored personnel carrier with the flag stretched
It'll
out.
be Russian with no flag on it. But
it'll have the Chaos flag. Yeah, it'll have our logo on it because we bought it. From the Moldovan kid, it was going cheap. He just wanted a pack of cigarettes for it.
He only went from the base to the Capitol and back every Sunday in it. It's got low miles.
Yeah. It's almost brand new.
Wow.
They were going to use it in the 70s to invade Western Europe, and then we invented the neutron bomb.
He literally invented a parallel universe for himself and just decided to live in it and wonder aloud why we all don't.
We've already talked about a few people today that do that, haven't we?
Like Louis Black was saying, that's called hallucinating.
Right. So actually, something I've noticed, I'm tuned into a lot of Russian language media, and a lot of it is not Russian government media. I want to make that very clear. Most of the media in Russia is Russian government. There's a lot of Russian-speaking media that's not based in Russia. There's some that's in the United States and France and Britain, Australia, places that have a lot of Russian expatriates. So this media has been pointing out that Putin's equivalent of Josh Earnest, of a White House press secretary, I'm not sure what they call him with the position, but same guy, it's a spokesman. His name is Peskov. What's been going on lately, this has increased sevenfold, is Putin will come out and make a crazy speech like that about Armaments R Us. And then Peskov comes out afterwards and makes a longer speech where he at least sounds less insane. It's still ridiculous, but he at least tries to politicize it, where you actually have to think about it to realize it's stupid, where it's not just stupid, just beating you over the head with stupid. So there's actually a theory being passed around, I'm taking it for what it's worth, that Putin's lost it. That he's going crazy. I mean, he's already a psychopath, but that he's just suffering from psychotic delusions.
Hearing him talk lately, I've been thinking the same thing.
Yeah, I mean, all that vodka and thinking you're the leader of the world and dumping your wife into a convent so you can marry a woman half her age. All that stuff tends to go to your head.
Is he like syphilitic like Lenin was? I mean...
It doesn't look syphilitic. I just, it's not that uncommon for a psychotic dictator to lose it. Especially being drunk on power, especially when you're engaged in this situation, which in reality is very bad politically for Putin. So, there's talk of like how Hitler in his last couple of months was
he had syphilis too, but
he did.
That's what I've heard that.
Did not know that, but I do know that
there's speculation that he may have, and then there's another one that said he had Parkinson's too because he shook.
Well, didn't he have a
tremor?
No, that's Stalin. In any case, I'm not sure, but I do know that in his final weeks, he was certifiably insane. Oh, yeah. And he was like ordering the moving around of military divisions that had been destroyed years ago, and just...
If you haven't watched Der Untergang, The Downfall, was probably the best movie ever made about that period. It was agreed upon. It was the first one that had a German or Austrian starring as Hitler. It was a really good movie. I don't know if you've seen it. It's about the last few days in the bunker. It's really, really well made.
Right, it's the same idea. So
and it showed there's a particular scene. It's very famous in an internet meme. People will retcon the subtitles for other stuff. But there's a scene where he orders everyone, all the military people that are there, into a room. And this is like, at this point, the Russians are bombing Berlin. I mean, it's over.
It's done.
It's over.
You lose.
It's very over by then.
It's done.
They're at the outer parts of the city. They're there. It's a matter of hours now until it's gone. And so he's got these guys, he's got the map out on the desk. He's like, if we move this guy here and this guy's division here, and this guy will come through, definitely. And everyone in the room is looking at him like, he doesn't know, does he? They're all dead. They're all gone. You're moving around divisions that exist now only in your addled mind.
Right.
That's it.
Okay.
And there's a part where he snaps and he starts screaming at everyone in the room. He's like, it's your fault. You're the one who betrayed me, and I've been fought by the military all the time, and blah, blah, blah. Like, it's obvious. He's gone.
Well...
And it's after that he kills himself.
It's hard...
Yeah. You put yourself in these stressful situations,
right. I mean,
you will go insane.
Right. It's hard to imagine someone not going insane. And I feel like that's where Putin is approaching.
Because I think part of it, this is armchair psychology, and let me tell you, you tell me how valid this sounds. Doesn't it seem like when they start out with this picture in their head of what type of country they're going to lead, they can see it, they've been there.
The world they're going to lead.
They've walked around in it, they know what it looks like, they can picture it, they've been there. Doesn't it tend to really wreck them when reality comes in and shatters that illusion? I could see them that happening to them would just make them snap and completely lose their shit.
Here's the thing. I've witnessed psychosis in my life. Many times I've witnessed it in many patients, and I've been in many situations where I'm dealing with a psychotic individual. And I'm not going to get into the details of that, but definitely what they actually teach you as a professional not to do is not to directly challenge the psychosis.
And because there's a scene in the Untergang.
What makes the person dangerous?
There's a scene in the Untergang at the very beginning, before he's actually locked in the bunker, where he's showing like one of his top aides the new Berlin that he's going to build when the war is over. This is at a time where like the barbarians are at the gates. They're there.
Right.
And he's, it's okay. He was actually saying in the conversation, it's fine that the Russians are flattening every city on their way here because we'll rebuild it to look like this. It'll be great when the war's over.
Right.
And we win. Wait, what?
Yeah, exactly.
Are you out of your fucking mind?
Right.
Well, they are. Anyway,
right.
you were
saying. If you challenge... No, I mean, you've got a point. So what they teach you not to do is not to directly challenge the psychosis and shove reality in their faces that they're ignoring, because they'll attack you. That's dangerous. Now, this is some guy locked up, some poor soul, locked in a psychiatric institution that believes he's somebody he's not, let's say. Now, let's imagine for a second that you're the president, dictator of a country with about 30,000 or so nuclear warheads. And someone challenges your psychosis. I'm not suggesting we start investing in the lead to put around our houses for the radiation poisoning, but only because against the Tsar bombs, that's not going to work. I mean, I'm exaggerating, but the situation in Russia, I feel like, we've talked about this many times on the show, mostly because it's really kind of a personal interest to me. And what I'm seeing, despite Putin just being insane, is it's rapidly deteriorating. And what happens to psychotic dictators in that situation is they get taken out by their own people because they're dangerous.
They're going to let there's too many people have too much to lose, yeah.
Well, the guy's right under them. They're like, okay, this guy is going to jump in the fire thinking he can't burn because he's invincible, and he's going to take us all with him. That's what he's doing. That's what Putin's doing. And these guys, not only do they have, not only is it their personal interests, their financial interests. And let's say, he actually said something along the lines of, don't mess with Russia, it's a nuclear power.
Yeah, I remember, did he say something else? He had to... I heard earlier in the week, everyone was losing their shit over him saying, I could be in Kiev within 2 weeks. And then his that same press guy, that's the first time I heard about him, he had to come and say, he didn't really literally mean that. He was just, speculating on the average time it would take, how many people you'd kill on the way. He was just talking out loud. That's kind of like saying, OJ didn't admit killing Nicole Brown Simpson. He just wrote a book saying, if I did kill that bitch, this is how I would do it. It doesn't mean he did.
Right.
Wow.
So on that note, and I agree with you completely, Joe. Very, very good analysis there. So he actually said something along the lines of, don't mess with us, we're nuclear. Now, the last guy to say that was Boris Yeltsin.
He said that?
Oh, yes, he did.
Wow, I didn't even know about that.
But see, Yeltsin,
was he drunk at the time?
He was always drunk.
When was Boris Yeltsin not drunk?
Right, asking if Boris Yeltsin
was Boris Yeltsin drunk? Is he asleep? Well, he's still technically drunk when you're asleep. If you're really drunk when you go to sleep, you're still drunk when you're asleep.
Right. So
maybe there's 5 minutes after.
Of course he was drunk. But again, Boris Yeltsin was known for this, that toward the end of his tenure, 97, 98, 99, he was losing his shit completely. He was drinking nonstop. He was one of these alcohol abusers that just never dried up. He had a lot of health issues. He was constantly unavailable, which is why you had this revolving door of prime ministers, which would be the second guy, because they kept manipulating him to appoint different people in his just various drunken stupors. It was a very bad time for Russia, because you have a guy like that in charge. It's like, good God, what is he going to do? Now, thankfully, Yeltsin wasn't a guy that basically tried to swing fists at anybody a lot. He was actually a pretty friendly guy. He was just incompetent. He's an idiot, and he let their infrastructure go to shit, and he allowed a bank default and all that, so it's a little bit different. Toward the end, he actually, Clinton said something he didn't like. Nothing bad, just something he didn't like, and he actually got on TV, and he said, I want to remind President Clinton that we have nuclear weapons. And, literally, half an hour later, Putin, who was already prime minister at the time, got on TV. Just don't listen to him. Boris, him and his vodka. This is what happens.
We'll lock him in a room with a case of it, and he'll forget he was even president.
He doesn't even know where the button. He couldn't even find the button to launch the nukes. Don't worry about it. He's just drunk. So now it's come full circle.
Yeah.
Now Putin is that guy.
It's funny how it works out, isn't it?
And there's actually been a lot of books written that Yeltsin, you remember that Yeltsin stepped down a tad ahead of time. He was supposed to be in power for almost another year before the election, but he stepped down New Year's Eve 2000, or New Year's Day 2000, and Putin became interim president until the election that actually elected him president. And there's actually a lot of speculation that incident with the we have nuclear weapons is one of the things that led to it. After that, everybody got like, all right, this guy's got to go. This is not funny anymore. He's going to get shit-faced one day and push the button and end the whole world. What
if he finds out where it
is?
What
if he finds the button when he's drunk? We have to think about this stuff. We have to consider the future of our children. Now, fast-forwarding to today, 15 years, think about this. Let's say you're a Russian general, and again, I'm sorry. Let's say you're a general.
We know
in the
you're
Russian
taking
army.
vodka. We get it. Your kids can't eat that, and they're sick of drinking it. They're already alcoholics.
Pretty much.
Anyway,
you're a general in the Russian army. Now, first of all, the Russian army and the KGB hate each other. We've addressed this on the show, Putin's KGB, so you're not exactly fond of this idiot to begin with. And now you get the order to launch. Boom. Their nuclear warheads.
Which you know what that means.
Yeah, you're no matter how drunk you are,
our
you
nuclear
understand.
Custodians may be drunken, drug addict, perverted cheaters, as has been revealed in the last couple of years, but they still have working buttons under their fingers. So,
right. This works. There's absolutely no
and we're still loaded
chance.
for bear.
Right, yeah. Strategic nuclear weapons, the only possible outcome is mutually assured destruction.
Yeah.
That hasn't changed. The difference is
since
it
the
may
1950s.
It may be a little bit heavier on the Russian side for the simple fact that a lot of this stuff has got to be in disrepair. some of
just
the
knowing
stuff
Russia,
launch. Right.
You open the bomb casing and there's just a bunch of empty vodka bottles inside instead.
And you start
where is plutonium core? We sold it for vodka.
To Afghanis.
Oh my God.
Yeah, but see, that's actually a lot scarier is where is it going to end up? Where is it going to make a way to? So, exactly. But nevertheless, they still, I mean, you only need about 10% of what Russia has to end all life on Earth.
That's true, yeah.
It has
the numbers are mind-boggling.
And
that's still pretty good odds for them. That's still pretty good.
Yeah, the nuclear arsenal of Russia is larger than the rest of the world combined. There is no surviving that. That shit gets launched. Oh, yeah.
Wow, I did not know that.
The number. That doesn't mean they're not modern warheads. I mean, a lot of them, like, we specialize in precision.
Don't we have like 10 or 15? It's like 10 or 15,000, I thought.
Okay, but it's also the size of the warhead.
Yeah, that's what
they have like the Tsar bombs. We don't have those.
Do they still actually have Tsar bombs?
Well, what are you going to do with them?
They blew one of them up. I know that.
That was a test. No, they said. Remember we talked about this in a different show where the USSR,
I thought they moved on for that because they wanted ICBMs. After that.
In the 70s, they still had tanks that were used in World War I. That's the thing about Russians; they don't throw anything away because they like the idea. It looks good for PR. We have a big arsenal, Vladimir. That shit doesn't even work. It didn't even work when we first built it. We bribed the inspector with vodka and he signed that it worked. It sure as fuck doesn't work now 50 years later. We have big arsenal. We big Russians. We nuclear. Point being, this situation, so you're going, even though we haven't seen it yet, you're bound to have a lot of nullification at all levels. Should this actually escalate to a NATO versus Russia conflict? I mean, the mere fact that they're having to say these are not our troops in Ukraine, that's going pretty far. Why don't you just admit you're invading Ukraine? Because the moment you do that, you'll be facing the repercussions. This way you can at least pretend you're not doing it.
And I know we were discussing the 3 different regions that are now already openly discussing maybe they don't want to be part of the Russian Federation anymore, correct?
Right. So Russia, I mean, I would encourage folks to Google federal subjects of Russia because it's a clusterfuck on its own. It looks something a little bit like a medieval empire. How many different types of subject states there are within the Russian Federation?
Who knew there was a little chunk of Russia that's not attached to Russia that's right near Poland? And I think it was Latvia, wasn't it?
Well, it's called Kaliningrad County.
Look that up. I did not know that until the World Cup thing was announced.
What did you call it? Little Russia off to the side.
Yeah.
And that's exactly that's a very perfect description. So, of course, I'm sure we've heard of the 3 Baltic states: Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania, which are right there on the Baltic Sea on the Russian border. And then if you look very carefully, it's very small. It's just one county, not one city, one county. On the other side of those, between those and Poland, there's a little place that belongs to Russia. It's not attached to Russia.
Nope.
But it belongs to Russia. It's under Russian jurisdiction. And the way the history behind that is it used to be a German city, or a Prussian city more accurately, called Königsberg. And the Germans occupied it when they partitioned Poland with the USSR, because those countries, at least Lithuania and parts of those countries, were part of Poland at the time. And then when the USSR took it back, that was where the border ran. So Estonia, Lithuania, Latvia all became equal parts of, well, not equal, but they became republics of the USSR. And then that little piece, because it was taken from the Germans, became a part of Russia. So when the USSR collapsed, that stayed part of Russia. And little Russia off to the side is a perfect description of it. What that place is a little bit like the Cayman Islands to the United States. Or like Hong Kong for China. It's out there, it's sitting in the middle of the EU. So a lot of the laws don't apply that apply in Russia. A lot of the repressions are not there. It's very, very different than the rest of Russia. And it's invariably where Putin and a lot of his cronies have a lot of their money. So when that's a place where you have your money, that's a place you're going to want to protect. That's a place you're going to want to be safe. And of course, having the World Cup there makes perfect sense because it's putting on a good face. Look, this is what Russia looks like.
They're going to several places. That is one of them.
Right.
Yeah.
So what happens, what's been going on, actually one of the events that I wanted to get to, of course, is the NATO response that, okay, we're basically going to shove a NATO base up Putin's asshole. Or, translated into more appropriate language, we're going to put a NATO base in northern Poland right on the border of this. If you look at where that base is going, it's basically smack dab in between Moscow and Kaliningrad County.
It's right at an intersection.
Now, this is a big problem for Moscow. Because let's say, as Joe was talking about, regional independence bids, let's say the regional governors and the regional powers in Kaliningrad decide that maybe all that money Putin has in their banks might be better off in a Swiss bank account under their names. Can you see that possibility? They have a few shots, and they're like, hey,
why should we?
Ivan, I have an idea. And the other Ivan says, but he will fly planes, he bomb us. No, there is NATO base with surface-to-air missiles. That won't reach here.
Remember when everyone who's ever seen Blow, remember when he tries to go back to the Panamanian Bank to get his money?
Yes.
And it's like, oh, it's been nationalized now. Sorry about that. It's our money now. I think when you leave people with your money, they start to think it's their money after a while.
It's amazing.
They have your name on it, but it's sitting in my bank. What are you going to do about it?
Right, so especially when you have...
You're an American criminal. What will you do? Yeah, exactly.
Right, when you have a NATO base between you and the person that money belongs to, you tend to get a lot more brave.
If anything, aren't they behind enemy lines at that point, if you want to look at it that way? Why wouldn't they join that side? They're already there.
That's like us going and putting our money in a bank in the IS. Well, okay. Yeah. They're going to be happy. I'm like, yes, please. We give you excellent yield. We, allow Akbar. That tomorrow's like, hey, where's my money?
About that, yeah.
Yeah.
See that new Lexus outside? No,
yeah, anyway. Exactly. As if they could afford a new Lexus with what I make. Anyway, so my point being, so now apparently this morning on the news, and this is actually an interesting event that it's close to me personally because St. Petersburg County, if you look at a map, is right there, and that's where I'm from. I've been to all these countries, all these little places that I'm talking about now. So the first Russian troops, not volunteers on vacation, Russian troops, to go into Ukraine was an airborne division, a paratrooper division, that was mostly from a city called Pskov, which is right there. It's basically the last city before you're in Estonia. It's between St. Petersburg and Estonia. And it's a small town, but it's a very intellectual town. A lot of people end up there that basically move to Moscow or St. Petersburg, and for whatever reason they can't make it there. Professionals, engineers, academics, scientists, they end up in this city. It's an older city. It's very nice, very clean, very Western European. It's very much not like the rest of Russia. It's also similar to Kaliningrad. So a lot of this division happened to be from this town. And there, I believe, were about 100 guys in the division, and about 80 of them came back in boxes, which tends to happen with airborne divisions. You're the first ones thrown in there. You're going to have mass casualties, if you're going to have casualties at all. So they came back dead, and there was a huge scandal in the Russian media because they were told, and their families were told, that they were going on a training exercise.
Learning how to die, apparently. That's right. What they were training. And they learned really well.
Oh, they learned great. Yeah, they had great statistical outcomes. Yeah, A+. So they came back, and they had, they had their burial ceremonies. And there was this whole scandal. I mean, there were journalists going around trying to unearth this, talking to the wives and saying, how do you have a training exercise where 80 out of 100 guys die? What kind of training exercise is it? That the KGB was going to try to beat people up and intimidate them and give their families money not to talk. I guess there was an incident where someone came through and scraped off the date of death plates off their gravestones. This is the kind of stuff that they're down to. So if Putin is scary to you, then you're just not paying attention. Because if that's what you're down to doing, you're done. So now, in the same place, right on the Estonian border, in the news this morning, there's an incident that the Russian government apparently abducted an Estonian citizen.
That's not good.
Now, let me explain to our listeners in a very few words the difference between Ukraine and Estonia. Estonia is a NATO member. Ukraine is not. So, by definition, by NATO agreement, if Russia starts doing in Estonia what it's doing in Ukraine, everyone in NATO is bound to attack Russia. With Ukraine, we have some leeway.
It's funny how pre-World War I this setup is, isn't it?
Oh, yeah.
That's exactly what happened then. Yeah. Lest we forget. Different names, same idea.
So, of course, the KGB is claiming that this guy was a spy and that he was gathering intelligence, and the Estonian government screaming, give back our guy right now, asshole. It's right there in the same town where you just had 80 guys come back in boxes. Does this sound like a stable situation to you, Joe?
No. I would have to say.
And maybe a couple 100 miles north of where the NATO base is going to go up. Just, this is not a big place.
I think the word clusterfuck comes to mind.
Right, and so you see how where we are here with Russia, I feel like, is something very, very serious is about to happen here. Right now, everyone's kind of playing around with it. People are not sure to. It's almost like the Islamic State reversed. We're having all this hysteria about the Islamic State where they're a pain in the ass, but they're not remotely what they claim to be. And then we have this much bigger clusterfuck in Eastern Europe where the politicians are kind of talking about it, but you're not really having the same response. Now, I don't necessarily think Russia is a threat, so much so as it would help us to be prepared for what were to happen if tomorrow, let's say, Putin were to mysteriously have a heart attack or possibly die in a car crash involving large-scale explosives. Because that's what tends to happen when you're a psychotic dictator and your own people want to take you out.
Like Stalin didn't have a stroke.
Well, right, okay.
There was some theory that he didn't have a stroke.
Nobody really knows what happened there. So,
hard to know. Lots of people hated him. Lots of people hate Putin. We'll just see what happens.
There's also been a bid in the Russian parliament in the last month for the Siberian region. Some representatives from the Siberian region decided...
like half of the landmass of Russia.
Not only that, but it's 75% of oil and gas.
The resources are. Yeah, that whole thing that makes us take them seriously. Yeah, exactly.
They submitted a bid to Parliament for federalization. Now,
this is kind of like the Kurds having their own country with all the oil.
Put
it in Western terms.
Yeah, there you go. Federalization. Well, speaking of terms, so Putin is known for milking semantics. So, for example, one of the things he's been trying to push on Poroshenko, the president of Ukraine, is Ukraine needs to be federalized in these counties like Donetsk and Luhansk that are supposedly pro-Russia, even though they're not, that they need to have basically some independence. But if you look at the details of what he basically wants them to be separate countries. So now this Siberian delegation to the Duma, the Russian parliament, said, hey, we want federalization. I mean, you're for federalization, right? It's a good thing, independence, or thinking of people's regional governments representing them, having more... No. We don't understand. How can you savages federalize over there in Siberia? Now, what I want to point out is this kind of thing does not happen in Russia. It's like over here we have, 2 counties over. We have San Bernardino County, that has had 6 referendums on becoming its own state.
Boy, I did not know that.
You did not. There's actually, I believe, 1 on the ballot for this.
I'd let him go, I think.
Oh yeah, please, get out, go, please. Yeah. But
okay then. The least that'll be the first ballot, winner of the least visited state in America.
Yeah, it's like Arkansas, move over.
Boy, right? I gotta go to San Bernardino on my next little vacation. I haven't seen a meth addict yet in my life. God almighty.
Okay, but here's the problem.
Yeah, if Southern California were a person, San Bernardino is its asshole, just so you know. Anyway, keep going.
Agreed, but here's the thing. Here's the bigger picture.
I'm going to get hate mail from San Bernardino.
No. Please bring it on. 6.
Please tell me how good your trailer in the middle of the desert is. Please, God,
really. Okay, now. 6 referendums, Joe. And they do this, and all the people that are against it have to do is publish the tax revenue versus tax investment criteria from Sacramento for that survey. Okay, you see how this number is in red?
Incidentally, California could publish one of those on its own for America. So could Texas.
Right.
Anyway.
But speaking specifically just at the state level, we think this is normal. Independence bids and whatnot. Even Scotland has an independence bid and it's a referendum.
They've had that for forever. You ever watch Braveheart?
Right. There's some political tension.
That goes deep.
But in Russia, people do not grow the balls for this stuff until it's very serious. I mean, those 3 countries that we just...
Well, the last time this happened, the USSR broke up.
The 1980s.
So, yeah.
I mean, those 3 countries that we mentioned, Latvia, Lithuania, Estonia, they were the first 3.
They started musing out loud back then, too.
Right,
why don't we do this Soviet shit anymore?
It was actually a little more brutal than that. Right, so... Same idea here. When you have people in Russia saying, we want independence, when you have people in Russia going out in the streets saying, fuck Putin, that is very serious. This is not something that's common in that part of the world. And the fact that they're doing it is a pretty significant indicator that they can, that they're smelling the blood and they're realizing the Russian Federation is about to collapse. And my recommendation for that, rather than to being hysterical about a bunch of, now I guess we should call them Lexus jockeys, hanging around in the desert with their black flags and publishing their 10-year plans for how they're going to get to Spain.
Oh, black flag, that's why you want to be scary. Yeah.
You can't even take Baghdad. I'm not scared of you.
And we took Baghdad in like 2 minutes, a couple of times.
Baghdad doesn't even like Baghdad. The people in Baghdad hate the government in Baghdad. But you idiots are so incompetent and so pathetic and so hated that they won't even let you in there. You are not scary. Put that black flag down and go back to cleaning out houses like you're qualified to do. However, when it comes to Russia, my concern there is all the shit that's there. Okay, first you have oil and gas. Second, you have that whole nuclear arsenal. And guess where a lot of it is? Siberia. Because just like we have it here, in places like Nevada and Oklahoma, it's in the middle of nowhere.
It's actually 4 states. It's in Montana, Wyoming, and I think,
Nebraska?
And I think, 2 Midwest states.
Right. So it's out in the middle of nowhere because that's where you want your nuclear
and Colorado's
arsenal.
one
Colorado,
of them.
yes. So if that becomes, let's say, its own country. Now, if you look at Siberia, look at a map, look at that Federative Subjects of Russia map. Siberia is not even all that clearly defined, and it's certainly not a country unto itself. It has many smaller regions, tons of little ethnicities that live there, and they're relatively peaceful. But when you have something like that break off and the development is not there, you're going to have conflict. And conflict between small countries housing big nuclear warheads is not a good thing because it's not even that they're going to use them, they will sell them. And who do they got to the south of them? You see where this becomes a problem. Hey, you want a Lexus? You see that? You see that style over there? No. That is not a bear cave. Let me explain something to you. No. You don't want to explain? You want Lexus and with a case of vodka? Here. We're Muslims. We don't drink.
Here, take it all. Right.
Yeah,
Exactly.
Wow. This, when the USSR collapsed, one of the biggest problems that the United States had, because the CIA completely slept through this.
Yes, they did.
They completely missed that it was going to fall apart. Was that now its nuclear arsenal ended up in 4 countries. Russia, Ukraine, Belarus, Kazakhstan. Incidentally, the last 4 countries that were still left in Russia's bloc. And it took us, I believe, till 1998 to get all those countries to give up their weapons so that only Russia would have them, because nuclear proliferation is a huge problem. Especially, places like Kazakhstan, there's a lot of open area, there's a lot of open space, and they did not have the resources to control them. And of course, they're neighbors with Tajikistan, and Afghanistan is right there, and all that. This is not a good place to have nuclear weapons.
Kazakhstan, incidentally, was there in Nevada, and where their test areas were. Right. Anyway.
Fortunately, the guy in charge of Kazakhstan, psycho that he is, did not want that reputation. He wanted a good relationship with the West. He wanted neutrality, so he was the first one to surrender it. But nevertheless, this can potentially be a huge problem. So maybe, rather than talking about how we're going to not give Afghanistan over to the Taliban in a couple of months, yes, I said that.
Yeah, we probably are.
Or how the Islamic State is so scary because they're making videos beheading people, maybe this is something NATO ought to think about. And even putting up bases, it's counter strategy, but if Russia falls apart, and if it becomes just this no man's land of little countries and little fiefdoms killing each other, our military strategy is going to be as ineffective there as it is in the Middle East. And maybe for once, rather than screaming, they're going to kill us, we need to spend more money on weapons, maybe we need to think ahead. Okay, what do we do if this happens?
Guess that's a good question.
So, and we got a little heated there toward the end, but I feel like really the world is on fire. And a lot of this stuff we have predicted. We've predicted the Middle East would go to shit, and that there would be a whole reshuffling of the geography there.
And it just seemed the writing was on the wall. And we know what's going to happen in Afghanistan. It's already happening.
And
the psychos are going to come right in and take over.
Can just be thrown right into the mix? I mean, they already got, you got IS, you got Iran, you got the Taliban. I mean, let them go.
Don't leave things better than they were when we found them. We just don't.
We're just not very good.
We have a bad record with that. Incidentally, on a completely different note, I think if there were a state of San Bernardino, the capital would be Victorville. It just has to be Victorville.
Okay.
Isn't that just if you have state bullshit and you have the capital bullshit too? I mean, yeah, wow.
I guess today we rather than a comedy bumper, Joe is just going to work on a stand-up by hating on San Bernardino.
What's to hate about a complete flat expanse of trailer parks and meth dens?
Yeah,
I mean, I don't.
If you have not been to San Bernardino, thank your stars.
An empty, parched desert. It's a hell of a place when you say, boy, I wish I was in Riverside right about now. And you mean it. Or, boy, I'd really need to get back to Colton. This San Bernardino shit sucks.
For those who don't know where this is, by the way, it's basically if you're driving into California from Las Vegas, going the southern route towards South California, that the county that you enter is San Bernardino, and you're driving through it forever.
It makes L.A. look like Eden at the very end of that.
Absolutely.
Believe me. And that takes some feet. That's some feet right there.
It's intense.
Wow.
So on that note, we thank you for being with us. Thank you for listening to The Edge of Chaos. I'm Neurotoxin.
I'm Joe Ryan. Thank you for listening to The Edge of Chaos. We can be found on the internet at edgeofchaospodcast.com. That's edgeofchaospodcast.com. Contact the show, edgeofchaospodcast@gmail.com. Follow us on Twitter at edgeofchaosshow. We can also be found on Facebook at facebook.com/theedgeofchaos. Neurotoxin's blog can be found at neurotoxins with an S, fyg.blogspot.com. For Neurotoxin, this is Joe Ryan. Thank you for listening to The Edge of Chaos.
Folks, I believe in my heart that the Department of Homeland Security's color-coded heightened state of awareness system might be the most useless thing ever shoved down the throats of the American people. In all my travels, I've yet to meet one person that knows what to do different if the heightened state of awareness is yellow or orange or yellow. Nothing ever happens anyway. I haven't met one person that knows that there are 5 heightened states of awareness in this country. Did you know that, sir? Fuck no, you didn't. Oh, no. Blue, green, yellow, orange, and red. Apparently, when the heightened state of awareness is blue, you don't even need sunscreen. You can just walk outside naked. You can't even burn my cock. I'm not sure why the Scottish guy said that. You can't even burn my cock. The biggest problem I have with the heightened state of awareness system in this country is that it makes no sense. The second biggest problem I have with it is that it scares my mother. Thanks. The last time the heightened state of awareness switched from yellow to orange, my mother called me, and my mother is very rural, as am I. And Mother called me and she goes, the heightened state of awareness just switched to orange. I said, I know, Mother, I was watching television. She goes, I don't know what to do. I said, Mother, nobody knows what to do. They didn't even print a flyer with this program. But since we were attacked on 9/11, Mama, we've all been in a general heightened state of awareness. She goes, I don't know what that means. If I were in charge of the Department of Homeland Security, we'd have a heightened state of awareness system in this country, that's for sure, but we'd have one that made sense and one that the fine citizens of this country understood. And we would have 2 heightened states of awareness. Go find a helmet. Put on the fucking helmet. That way I know what to say to my mother when she calls. I don't know what to do. It's put on a fucking helmet, damn. Put on a fucking helmet, Mom. That strap goes under your chin, Mother.